Okay, so welcome back to Hindu Marriage Act. Yesterday we kept open a question regarding the effect, legal effect of a void and voidable marriage, and we also discussed the concept of void and voidability under Indian Contract Act. What will happen to a voidable contract if it is not challenged? It is a valid contract. Suppose it is challenged before a court of law and it is declared as void. It will be given a retrospective effect, and this marriage will be annulled by a degree of nullity from the date of its inception. So voidable marriage, if declared a nullity by a court of law, will be non-est in the eyes of law. In the same manner, if a contract is void and any of the parties do not challenge it in a court of law, and contract is not declared void, but law declares such contract to be void. So what would be the effect of declaration of law? And in the same manner, section 11 talks of a void marriage. A void marriage means a marriage in contravention of clause 1st, 4th and 5th, subinda, prohibited relationship, and the first one is the having a living spouse. If a marriage is solemnized in contravening any of these three provisions, and none of the party to the marriage challenge it before a court of law, so nobody is aggrieved here, none challenges it, then what will be the legal effect? Will it be a valid marriage, or will it be a nullity? What section 11 says is such a void marriage, such a marriage in contravention of clause 1, 4th and 5th of section 5 will be a null and void. So section 11 itself declares such marriages to be void marriages. So the legal result would be the law declares such marriage to be void. Now, is there any need for declaring a void marriage by the court when the law itself has declared it void? So I was telling you what will be the legal effect of a void marriage, and if the void marriage is not challenged by the parties to the marriage, the law, that is section 11 itself, declares such marriage to be a void marriage. When law declares such a contract or such a marriage to be a void marriage, is there any need for challenging it in a court of law and asking the court to declare such marriage as void? This is the basic question, or the question in root. which, if answered, will make you clear. Suppose both the parties to the void marriage are not challenging it, but the law challenging. Law says that it is a void marriage. The legal effect would be it is a void marriage. But if one of the parties says it is a void and other party says it is not a void, so dispute arises between the parties to the marriage, where one party says it's void and another party says it not void. Then how this dispute will be resolved? Who will decide it? In that case only, a need for declaration of such marriage as void by a court of law can arise. That's why the section 11 of the Hindu Marriage Act says that any marriage in contravention of the clause 1, 4, 5th of section 5 shall be null and void, and may on a petition by either party be so declared by a decree of nullity. What does it mean? Means that one party can challenge it. Challenge for what? It is a void marriage, already void marriage. But other party is not treating it as void. So dispute has come whether such marriage is void or not void. So aggrieved party can approach the court and seek declaration of such marriage as void. What will be the effect? Law has already declared such marriage to be void, and the court also resolves the dispute between parties to the marriage, whether it is a void or not, and court declares it void. So, and now question would be how the court will do so. The court will declare such marriage as null and void and annul it by passing a decree of nullity. What is this decree of nullity? Decree of nullity means a decree which declares such a marriage as nullity, void and nullity. Because the law has declared such marriage to be void and null and void, therefore court can declare such marriage by passing a decree of nullity. And what this section says, marriage can be annulled. Correcting myself, for void marriage there is only a decree of nullity. No annulment is necessary. But when it is a case of voidable marriage, a decree of nullity is also passed, but marriage is also annulled. So annulment is the effect and decree of nullity is the mode by which marriage is to be annulled, or by which the marriage is to be declared null and void. So no need to be confused. What is the annulment? What is the declaration of marriage as void? Now again question arises. Why a voidable marriage is annulled? Why a void marriage is not annulled? Only a declaration is made. The answer to this question would lie in the fact that void marriage has no legal consequence. No legal consequence flow from a void marriage. It is a void from its inception. But a voidable marriage is a perfect marriage, and the moment it is declared void, the relationship between husband and wife is annulled. So the relation is annulled. Annulment means the coming to an end. Whatever the husband and wife was having a relation on account of such marriage is now being terminated. And this effect is again retrospective. A voidable marriage, if challenged, will also be declared void from its inception. So it will be annulled from its inception. So virtually, where a void marriage is declared by court to be void by passing a decree of nullity, or a voidable marriage, court passes a decree of nullity and declares such marriage to be void, the legal result or legal impact of passing these two decrees would be one and the same, that as if marriage never existed. No relationship existed, marriage never existed between two persons, such parties. Apart from this fate provided by the law to the void marriage or the voidable marriages, another important aspect is that if some issues have taken birth out of such wedlock, so what will happen to the children of the void and voidable marriages? Law is very much clear on this point, because whatever the parents of such children born out of such wedlock have done, these children have nothing to do with. There is no fault of such children, and the children should not and cannot be punished for what their parents have done, and they are the results of the acts of their mother and father. So even when a marriage is declared void or the voidable, law grants legitimacy to such children. Section 16 of the Hindu Marriage Act, what does it say? Legitimacy of children, void and voidable marriages. So children would always be deemed to be the children of mother and father. It is a unique feature where marriage in itself is void. Marriage is non-est in the eyes of law, but the byproduct of such marriage have been given legitimacy. And one more aspect is such children will have a right to name or use the name of their mother and father as biological mother and father. So in the eyes of law, they are the legitimate children of the parents of a void or voidable marriage. But law at the same time restricts it to the parents only. So such children may acquire or may inherit any property only from their parents. These children cannot have any right in respect of the property owned by other family members except their mother and father. So they have a right to inherit the property of mother and father. And in respect of such children, if a child is born after the declaration of the such marriage as void, if it is shown that such child was begotten before the declaration, means such child was the byproduct of such marriage, then the position of such child, though born after the annulment of the marriage or declaration of the marriage as void, will be the legitimate child of their mother and father. Evidence Act also provides presumption in favor of the legitimacy to the children, and children are supposed to be the children of their mother and father, born out of a wedlock between them. Now, after solemnization of marriage, procreation of the children, and giving legitimacy to such children, the story does not come to an end. The story starts from here. The real life between two married persons start here. And it is a very tough task to come out of a marriage wedlock. Legally, it can be possible only through a decree of divorce. Decree of divorce under section 13, different grounds have been given on which one party can claim a decree of divorce. Another mode of mutual consent is 13B, where both the parties mutually agreed to take a divorce and come out of the padlock. So it is another mode. In between this divorce and subsistence of the marriage, law provided one more remedy. One more remedy in the nature of a, you can say, the cooling down period. A period should be given to the parties who are seeking the divorce to cool down their temper, and if their temper is cooled down, many of them may come to conclusion that they don't want a divorce. So a relief of a peculiar nature, that is the judicial separation, has been provided under section 10 of the Hindu Marriage Act. What does it say? Just we will refresh it. You can open it. Either party to a marriage may present a petition praying for a decree for judicial separation on any of the grounds specified in subsection 1 of 13, and in case of a wife also on any of the grounds specified in subsection 2 as grounds on which a petition for divorce might have been presented. So, decree of judicial separation can be claimed in a court of law. Here, grounds have been differentiated. A wife is having some additional ground, and a male husband has some lesser grounds. So, it again reflects a gender wise. Whatever the reason behind this gender wiseness may be, we are not concerned with that, but it is the law. So, grounds for the judicial separation for a husband would be those as mentioned in section 13 clause 1, means the ground for the divorce. So, ground for the divorce and the grounds for the judicial separation are one and the same for a husband, and ground for judicial separation for a wife is grounds given in section 13 clause 1 plus 13 clause 2. We will come to that section 13 just after finishing it. Second clause of section 10 says, where a decree for judicial separation has been passed, it shall no longer be obligatory for the petitioner to cohabit with respondent, but the court may, on the application by the petition of the either party and on behalf being satisfied of the truth of the statements made in such petition, rescind the decree if it considered it just and reasonable to do so. You just studied the rescission of the contract. Here, this law provides the rescission of a decree passed by a court of law. When a decree for judicial separation has been passed,